So now we're going to talk about how to journalize when I issue stock. And really, this chapter journal entries are quite easy because half of all of them involve cash. And if you remember when I explained to you, cash, when you get cash, you debit cash. When you spend cash, you credit cash. So if you would just remember that, it will be easy to remember these journal entries. So we have a separate account for each type of stock. So in other words, and by the way, my preferred stock and my common stock are equity accounts, and that's going to be under the equity section of the balance sheet. So let's not get confused. Let's take a look at my next slide. So pay attention here. Assume that a corporation is authorized. So that basically means authorized. The state says that I can issue 10,000 shares of $100 preferred stock. The $100 represents the actual dividend here. I'm sorry, the par value. I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. That is the par value. So I'm authorized to issue, which means sell 10,000 shares of $100 preferred stock. And I am authorized to issue 100,000 shares of a $20 par common stock. However, I can issue this much, but I never really want to sell all of my shares. I will lose control of the company. So I actually sell 5,000 shares of my preferred stock at par and 50,000, which is basically half of my common stock, at par for cash. So that means how much cash did I get? I got $5,000, 5,000 shares times $100, which is 500,000, and I got 50,000 shares times $20, which is $1 million. So I got $1.5 million in cash. My preferred stock account. So my preferred stock account has a credit balance of $500,000. Now remember, these are dollar amounts, not number of shares. Remember, I told you to be very careful about the number of shares and the dollar amount. My common stock has $1 million value in it, but what it represents is 50,000. So common stock has $1 million balance in it, which represents 50,000 shares, which is the number of shares times the par value. I want you to write this down. This is going to be important. Let me tell you what to write down. In the stock accounts, write this down. In the stock accounts, at all times, the dollar amount represents the number of shares times the par value only. So in the common stock account at all times, the $1 million represents the number of shares times the par value. So if I didn't know, if I only knew that it was $1 million in my common stock and I had a $20 par, I could figure out 50,000 shares. Very, very important. Okay, now we're not going to get into, now this says I issued, by the way, this says I issued at par for cash. So the par value is what I actually sold it for. So we're not going to get into why do some stocks sell high and some sell low. That's more of an economics class, and we're not going to get into that. But different factors will change the price that you sell the stock at. And here's a list of some of the things that could actually change that, but we're not going to focus on that. We do know that if we sell it above par, by the way, if I didn't tell you, par value is an arbitrary number that you've assigned to that stock. So whenever I sell above par, it's considered a premium. And whenever I sell below par, it's considered a discount. Okay, so this concludes my video on understanding how to journalize the issuance of stock for cash. And that was listed at par only. We will look on the next videos about what happens when I sell it for more than par.